The year is 407 AT. Swan 19, 1 month after the stars came back. The slumbering palace is in ruin. Large chunks of rubble pockmark the formerly manicured grounds. Bridges are collapsed into streams. Pagodas are missing their roofs. A thick, bone-white dust still covers everything. This crown jewel of Dokao is cracked down the middle, split open by the second stranger war, her vulnerable and beautiful heart ruptured open for everyone to see. Past an uprooted hawthorn tree, past a temple to Mengshen Zhidi that's still missing its southern wall, past a garden that's been burned to the ground, we find you, Oka. You are sitting in a wooden chair at a wooden table in the middle of the Hien family courtyard. There is no roof over your head, no walls around you to provide privacy, not even a paper curtain has been erected for shelter. Instead, you're sitting outdoors in your childhood courtyard, surrounded by rubble, detritus, broken slabs of rock, splintered wood, overturned earth, and you are eating dinner. A delicious shank and radish soup paired with freshly steamed white rice, sesame oil glazed vegetables, and big bowls of tofu, jellied eggs, meats, and fruits. And sitting around this decadent table next to you is your family. Your mother, Arden Hien, using her chopsticks to pile chunks and chunks of tender meat into your bowl, Oka. Your sisters, Sambaya, Liangya, and Toya. Yaya is currently hungrily scarfing down all the meat and tofu and protein she can get her hands on. Liangya is eating very delicately and pretending not to read a book that she has secretly perched on her knees underneath the kitchen table. And Toya is scolding Yaya for chewing like a wolf and swallowing like a tiger. Also at the table is the Emperor of Tu Long, Lord of 10,000 years and your mother-father, Xiong Zhen. Xiong Zhen is leaning to one side and whispering in Arden's ear. She's saying something that you don't hear, but it does make your mother laugh. A real laugh. One that crinkles the corners of her eyes and deepens the wrinkles that are beginning to form on her face. And of course, finally, in a seat very close to yours, in fact right next to you, is Shepard. Shepard is making low and casual conversation with Liangya about the book that she's definitely not reading right now under the table, and Liangya is responding very eagerly, very enthusiastically to Shepard, her thick glasses fogging up at the prospect of finally having an intellectual equal with which to debate. And as we hold on your face in the midst of this post-apocalyptic, rubble-surrounded dinner, what do we see?
We see a happier Oka, I think. It's easy to tell the way that their eyes, mismatched as they are wide with joy, I think, wide with ease, something they haven't felt in a long, long time. Like this is a dream come true, literally. Not a nightmare, but a dream come true. And they are leaned over the table, kind of with one knee like pressed against the edge of the table as they take their bowl from their mother, piled high with meat. They smile, sigh at it a little bit wistfully before they use their chopsticks to put it slyly into Shepard's bowl. And then they like turn to one side and grab a nice big egg out of Sambaya's bowl and go, older siblings get first pickings, and shove it in their mouth before she can say anything contrary. And this like warm smile kind of breaks across their face as the egg like runs down their chin a little bit, and they like turn and wipe it off as it follows the scars down their chin out of their mouth.
Yeah, I really like that. As this egg sort of like dribbles down your chin a little bit, Shepard, without even turning around from their conversation with Liangya, picks up a napkin and just daubs at your chin. Like, they're not even looking at you, but they perfectly wipe the egg off.
Oka doesn't flinch at all. They know it's coming, actually. They let it happen.
I love that, yeah. And I think there's a moment where you see across the table your father whisper something else to your mom, and Arden's eyes go slightly wide, and they look back at you, and they say across the table to you, Oga, I am so sorry about the meat. I forgot.
It's okay. More for Shepard. They haven't been able to taste your cooking yet, and I want them to get the full experience, including the 8,000 piles of meat.
Well then, Shepard, here you go. Eat up, eat up, eat up. You're a guest here. Oh, Arden, no, I couldn't possibly. Well, if you insist. And Shepard happily, like, spoons the meat into their mouth, right, from the bowl that Arden's piling on. And your father, I think, during this brief intercession, makes direct eye contact with you across the table, right? Their own mismatched eyes locking onto yours. And there's, like, a proud, like, slow nod from them. And we see they're wearing their casual crown. It's not like the huge ceremonial, like, decorative one, but like the casual one, you know, it's just worth 100,000 pieces of gold instead of 1,000,000 pieces, right? And like the jewels on the crown sort of like tinkle a little bit as they like lower their chin and then raise it at you. And as we pan back to you, we see that you don't have your crown, of course, because a certain precept took it from you.
Fate can take whatever she wants from me. Accept my life, accept my love, accept my family. Oka has what matters.
I think on that, we kind of pan around the dinner table as time passes. We see in the background rubble being removed, trees being replanted into the earth, walls being erected, even the very fabric of magic itself being restitched into the weave. And we also see loved ones coming and going from this dinner table in the Hien family courtyard square. We see Cain taking shots of Baidu with Mercy, who leans in to kiss Sitlali, who hugs Jiran, who whispers in Gentle's ear, who compliments Halo on her wedding garb, who talks business with Sava Dao, the Prince of Knives, who is comparing weapons furiously with Wang Buotian, who stares up in awe at Abiku Ishtar, who pats Costas on the head, who gives his last dumpling begrudgingly over to Vaska, who asks Mama Fish about her secret fish stick recipe, who admonishes Ibia with a big fin for putting her feet up on the table, who squeezes Rev's considerable bicep, who puts her arm around Vasanti, who leans her head in the crook of Lotus's shoulder, who gives Mo Jingtian a backhanded compliment about being reinvited into the kingdom, who shoots a glance at the person dating their half-sibling, Shepard, who is always there beside you, Oka. And through these changing constellations of tables, these shifting faces of loved ones, the passage of time around this dinner table, Shepard is always there. The days turn into weeks, turn into months, turn into years. You witness the rebirth of the singing oceans. You watch as the mountains themselves are built up again from scratch with nothing but magic and hope. Your siblings grow older. Yahya goes off to her first powerlifting meet. Liangya attains her physician's license. Toya is crowned Empress of Toulon with Sava Dao as her first spouse. You, too, grow older. And we fade in now on Shepard's homestead. Years have passed. The air tightens with magic, and then springing out of the weave are you and Shepard, entangled in each other's arms, laughing and stumbling together from one of these many dinners at the Hien family courtyard. Oka, tell me, what are you giggling to Shepard as you fumble your way over to the front porch?
No, seriously, I swear, a desert mouse ate 14 full days of rations. I know it. It was one single mouse. There's no way that anyone had gotten into my pouch, and it was there the whole time, and it stayed there until it died. I swear to you, that's what happened.
Oka, you know that's not physically possible, right?
I don't care
whole
what's
day
physically...
of rations? Every day for 14 days? Oka, that's impossible.
And don't tell me what is or isn't possible when you are standing in front of me. And when I have a god jackrabbiting around my soul, forgive the pun.
Are you comparing me to a plump little desert mouse in your knapsack?
I think you're about as cute as a mouse.
Why, thank you. I think you're as handsome as a tomcat.
A tomcat? Well, careful. Don't let cat they them hear you or they'll get upset.
That's true. They'll get jealous.
And you know what happens when they get jealous.
Ah, yes,
Biscuits
all
for
our
days.
upholstery. There's like a moment of silence, I think, between the two of you for all the ruined upholstery and all the biscuits all the time. And I think that's when you and Shepard both simultaneously notice a strange quiet coming from the chicken coop by the front porch. And I think your gut realizes what's happened before your mind can kind of catch up. You just instinctively know. Temperance, the chicken, is missing. Again.
Again.
I was so sure we reinforced the gate. There are 8 locks on it.
Maybe we should have tried 8 chains for fate. Oka says kind of derisively.
Yeah, Shepard lets out a little chuckle at that, but then goes, oh, well, let's not invite her over by calling her name too much.
Oka grouses and just kind of goes over toward the chicken coop. I swear, I put blood wards down. She hasn't even triggered any of them. How does she do that? There's literally not another creature I know that can bypass my blood wards.
I don't understand. I have a working theory about temperance, specifically. I don't know. It's probably nothing.
Share with me your heartless heart, my love.
Something entropic magic, something blended in with her heart and soul, something.
You think she's an entropic beast?
No. Maybe. I mean, the only thing that can bypass your blood wards are me.
Okay, you make a compelling point, but I've never. I mean, she's a chicken.
Well, she's the chicken I've had for the longest. She was my first. She was Dr. Luso's first, certainly. Maybe prolonged contact with me has imbued within her some capacity for void magic?
Am I gonna get that? If I kiss you enough, do I get cool powers?
Well, we certainly have been testing that hypothesis for a while now, haven't we?
I can still go invisible, but no cool shadow powers yet. Maybe I should take up some classes at Geron's school.
Maybe. Or maybe you can pick up a mentor in the form of Temperance, whom we still do have to track down.
Of course. Shall we take Sataro? Do you want to go on foot?
Let's go on foot. Just you and me.
Okay. And Oka slips their hand into Shepard's and starts tracking down Temperance.
I think we cut now to you and Shepard following the tracks, as usual, to the edge of the Euclid chasm. She seems to love the chasm for some reason. And there's like a cut as we see your wings splayed now, as you like flap down into the depths of the chasm, and Shepard beside you levitating themselves down as well, their entire body silhouetted by their famous cerulean magic. And as the two of you descend through the chasm, down, down, down into this darkness, we see that the walls of the Euclid are now overflowing with plant life. Colorful flowers of all shapes and sizes bloom on chasm crevices, magnolias, tree branches even sticking out, big fat petals of succulents. Vines creep from cracks in the dirt all around you, and even the sound of skittering echoes throughout this vast canyon as brand new animals and monsters have made their dens in the now safe nooks and crannies and tunnels and dungeons of this deep wound in the soul of Endake. The two of you even make your way past the entrance to the Hoofbright clan, which is easily recognizable from the sign out front that says, "No Okas allowed," which which these days is more of a running joke than an actual rule, and it has your face painted on it, like an angry looking drow with like a big red X across it. They never forget. They never forget. And down, down, down the two of you go until eventually you open a familiar wooden door into Tungal. This devoured sister world of Endake is as desiccated and gray as the two of you half remember. Tungal is a vast, empty expanse of parched, dry grass and blank spaces where mountains and rivers and people used to be. And as the two of you, I think, continue to look for temperance here, Oka, why don't you tell me, how are you attempting to track down this chicken?
I think it's just instinct at this point. Like, really, you can't look around this place without seeing the only other thing that exists within it. So even if it's a tiny little pinprick of a chicken on the horizon or the seed of annihilation, it's easy to see here in a way that is both unnerving and easeful, I suppose. And there is something about Oka that shifts when they enter this space. The memory of a memory of fear, the memory of a memory of the smell of long dead gods that suffuses their soul, suffuses their body. That makes them real for a moment, but exhale into it. And I think as they're walking hand in hand, Oka takes out and lights one of their hand-rolled cigarettes to help them calm down, to keep them grounded, even after all this time.
Yeah, and I think Shepard squeezes your hands with their own tattooed fingers, and like a feeling of calm, I think maybe comes from that point of contact, as you also sense, just from Shepard's vibe, and also from like the micro expressions flitting across their face, like shadows passing over the surface of a half-forgotten moon, that Shepard's also wrestling with similar emotions. Not of fear of this place and the vastness of death and annihilation, but a little guilt, a little shame, a little anxiety about the ghost of who they used to be. And sure enough, just like the seed of annihilation, like what feels like 1,000,000 years ago, just like the only speck of something in this vast expanse of nothing, the two of you see Temperance basically as soon as you walk in. She is a pearl-sized speck on the horizon, and she appears to be like sitting down, almost like roosting on the ground. And she kind of perks up when the two of you enter through the door, and looks in your direction, but doesn't move.
Oka shakes their head a little bit and sighs. She really is going to make us walk all the way over to her, isn't she?
Yes, she is. You know, I could just teleport us over there, but there's something sacred about taking the walk, don't you think?
I couldn't agree more. And as they go, Oka squeezes Shepard's hand as well, feeling that point of connection for both of them. And eventually, because, you know, the way walking works in this place is always kind of odd, Oka looks over at Shepard and goes, "This was a hard day, wasn't it?"
One of the hardest, I think.
Yeah. It was one of the hardest.
I was so full of, well, nothing. and grief, and rage, and shame. But most of all, I was full of loneliness and despair. I'm scared of looking at this place for too long. It reminds me of everything I've taken.
Shepherd. Maybe it's good that we're here.
What do you mean?
I mean, every minute that we spend here is like a new memory layering itself over the others. This has been a much better day. And we are very different than we were the last time we were here, and those memories get a little bit softer, their teeth a little less sharp.
Yeah. I can feel the edges of my sorrow dulling just a little. It's still there. The sadness is still there, don't get me wrong. The regret, the rage, all of it, but it doesn't feel like it's going to swallow me whole anymore. It feels like a memory, a lesson, a step on the road of the journey.
Yeah. I don't ever think it'll really go away, but... And Oka looks up at the half shadow of what used to be a moon. There is something beautiful about it. About you. There always has been. It takes time to be able to see it. Even the hard and scary parts. Even the hardest days. Maybe I'm just an optimist, though.
Oka the optimist.
Don't let anyone hear you say that. They will never, ever believe you.
Cynical Shuhai and Oka the optimist.
Please.
You are my hope, Oka. I wouldn't have come back here with anyone but you.
Me neither.
And for anything but to rescue Temperance, of course.
Of course. Temperance! Hey! Time to go home, little lady.
At this point, you and Shepard have reached Temperance. You're like within, you could just like bend down and pick her up if you wanted to. And she ruffles her feathers at you and lets out a kind of disgruntled
Don't talk back to Temperance, please. Are you roosty? What are you sitting on? And Oka bends down and picks her up.
Yeah, she is sitting like a roosting hen, right? Like she's like very territorial, like very, almost kind of aggressive as you lean down and pick her up. She lets out a few more cluck, 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 cluck. But you easily overpower her. And you lift up this chicken and she was roosting on something. She was sitting on something. A flower. That's right. Growing up out of the desiccated grass, up through a sliver of a crack in this bleached and parched earth, is a flower. It's a very little tiny bud of a flower. Its petals have barely bloomed, but it's there. A spot of color against this never-ending pale and gray. And Oka, why don't you tell me, what color are its petals?
Blue? Like Oblivion? Like Dr. Eluso? Like her magic?
The petals of the first flower in the Ghost of Tungal are a beautiful cerulean blue, the same as their magic. Oh, my.
Did you do that?
No, I think. Not consciously. No.
And Oka crouches down, kind of hovers over it like a massive titan over top this tiny little flower. They look up at Shepard again. It's beautiful.
It's impossible.
It's you.
Me?
Yeah. It's you.
Huh. And Oblivion also bends over next to you, and like the two of you are like these huge titans looming over this like tiny little flower sprouting out of the ground. They like blink at it once, blink, blink, blink at it twice, blink, blink. Yeah. And their face like softens with such care for this one tiny little flower in this wasteland. It is me, isn't it?
Yeah. A new memory. I mean, I always did kind of wonder, and Oka sits back on their heels a little bit and looks out across the desiccated landscape. You left grass. I don't even know if you meant to, but they look down at their feet. It's dead, but everyone knows that graveyards have the most beautiful flowers.
I never thought it possible. Just like how I never thought it possible a tiny little desert mouse could eat 14 days of rations all by itself. But you're right, Oka. Life, living, being, it defies possibility. It just is. Creation blooms in the husks of devoured realms. From death, from the ghosts of what used to be, new life grows. I've never thought of myself as capable of doing anything like this.
That's why we rewrote reality for you, my love.
Oh.
Because you are. You're capable of anything. Anything you want to be. And Oka moves a little bit of hair from his bangs.
Oh, I suppose I knew that intellectually, but it just never really, it didn't click until now.
Do you think other worlds, all of the others that you've told me about?
Yes. The planes I've annihilated. You think they might have blue flowers blooming within their ghosts too?
Maybe. I suppose we'll never know if we don't check. If we don't make new memories.
A look of understanding washes over Shepard's face as the two of you are crouched over this flower with Temperance the chicken swaddled in your arms, Oka. And they lock eyes directly on your face. You've always been a little restless after the war, haven't you, Oka?
You see right through me.
I don't see through you, Oka. I see within you. I always have.
Despite themselves, Oka flushes a little bit at that. They look down at the flower again, trying to find the words. Always so hard for them to find the words. They look back up at Shepard's face. I've just changed so much. Everything that I thought that I wanted, I suppose it's hard. Emperor always suited Toya much more than it suited me. It was a dream I had for a long time, but a dream of somebody who died a long time ago. And I needed to let that rest. I'm happier to find my own path now. I just don't know if I've ever known what it is. Not quite yet.
You remind me of me. And don't I remind you of you? And doesn't this conversation remind you of a conversation the night before we said goodbye to a dear old friend?
It does.
We can figure out who both of us want to be together. You are the paragon of time and change and time and nature. And Shepard gestures down at the flower.
Tell that to Temperance. She always pecks my feet.
And she is actively pecking your feet right now. Like, throughout this entire conversation, I need to make it clear she's been pecking your feet. But both of you have just been ignoring her. What better person to embark on a brand new adventure across the cosmos with? And at that, Shepard reaches out their hands for yours again. Then with you.
Oka doesn't hesitate to take their hands. And their face goes a little wide. You'd take me?
Always. I already have. I will. I never have. And I shall. In every iteration, every reality, always.
I think I could buy us a little time. So we're not gone for too long. Mother will be very, very disappointed if we miss any dinners, and, well, Kane's been wanting a wedding sooner rather than later, so.
Well, of course, and it must be magnificent and splendid and decadent for Kane.
I know. I think perhaps a wedding present from another realm would suit them.
Oh, I have the perfect plane in mind for that.
Are we getting a little ahead of ourselves?
Oh, perhaps, yes. I'm sorry, I got a little excited.
No, it's... Me too. I just... It feels right. It feels right.
Shepard squeezes your hands a little tighter in their own. Okahian, will you come with me to the places I've been before? To shepherd in change, nature, a new time, a new bloom.
Oka just leans forward and presses a kiss to Shepard's lips. They pull back. Is that enough of an answer, or should I? And they lean in and kiss her again. Pull back. Is that enough, or perhaps just one more for good measure, so you know what my answer is?
The two of you kiss again, and then Shepard lowers their hands from yours, places one against the small of your back, and pulls you in now. They, pull you in and kiss for a fourth time. Is that enough for you?
No. I don't think there will ever be enough for me. But I suppose we have all the time in the world.
That we do. And Shepard's eyes fix on you for what feels like forever, and also no time at all. And as they do, they say to you, intimately, whispering their mouth against yours in a voice meant only for you. And the void speaks to you, Oka, and she says, you once told me that the love of a god is a blessing. It's a scar. It's all of you, and you offered all of it to me, willingly, as my loyal, broken devotee. So now, Oka, as we embark on this new adventure together, I give you everything of nothing. I give you the darkness behind the stars, the shadow of a forgotten moon. And one day, when you are ready and I am ready, I will give you my final gift, the death of death. I will hold you in my arms one last time, and you will hold me in yours, and together we will return to the void.
I can't wait to see you. I love you.
I love you too, Okahien. The year is 407 AT, Ox 3, several months after the stars came back. Summer light hangs above Zima Lake, Galtanger's rays glaring reflectively across the icy blue surface. Heat shimmers in the atmosphere, and yet the air remains chilly. The rest of Endake might be melting into summer here, but the commune is always cold. And this is where we find our story now, at the northern edge of Morose, where Zima Lake tapers off into a cliff's edge, and the Great Sigirni Salt Flats begin. A memory of the ocean shines in the bright, cold fractals of the waste. And standing in the middle of the ice, backlit by this cliff, is the hut. A wooden and hide hut, its edges lined with fur and straw, a thick woven mat insulating the cracks between floorboards. This hut has legs. Blue legs. Blue lizard legs, to be exact, hunched low against the ice. Sharp, ridged talons stand upon this ice, perfectly still, each coal-black claw the length of a longsword. A little chimney protrudes from the roof, venting thick columns of steam up into the summer sky. And 10 feet away from this hut, swaddled in scarves and furs, we find Costas. Their dark brown skin is beaded with anxious sweat. Their hood is pulled back, revealing a handsome face cut in half by ice. Twin swords are strapped across their back, and they are nervously consulting a slip of paper in their hands. A letter. A letter they are currently reading out loud, trying various different angles for. And next to Costas is you, Voska. Costas is in the middle of saying, okay, hello, Karal. I know it's been over a year since we spoke. No, that's too casual.
I think I'm imagining this is like maybe the 5th or 6th run through now, and Voska was like, yes, you're doing it because you just have to say the thing, but they keep cutting off the same point. So she's just... Each time she just kind of like this audible like sigh. She like reaches her neck lowers and she looks back at Costas. She says, Costas, my dear, perhaps we run through the whole thing.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And then, yes.
Costas seems emboldened by your encouragement, ripples out the paper into a fine sheet and says, okay, hello, Karal. I know it's been over a year since the incident, and I'm here on your doorstep for 2 reasons. One is to apologize, and the other is to apologize even more. And I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect anything. I don't expect a pat on the back, anything like that. But I just want you to know that I'm a different person. I've changed. I've grown since we last spoke. And you don't owe me anything, but I just thought this might be nice for you. For closure. Is that too presumptuous? I think that's a presumptuous way to end the apology.
Yeah, perhaps we and I think Voska like takes a look at it, pulls out like a bit of charcoal or whatever writing utensil she has on her, and she just kind of just goes scratch out that in a very wonderfully elegant straight line. And she goes, "Yep, that didn't sound good coming out of Costas' mouth, so we'll just cut that out."
Voska, what do I do? I'm not good with words. I have all these emotions in me, but they're coming out all wrong.
But it is not coming out wrong, though, Costas. It's important that she knows how you feel. That's the point of this, is that you're honest with your feelings, yes?
Yes, and I'm ready.
You're ready. There's no need to manicure it. There's no need to tame it. Just be you. And in Voska's head, she mutters to herself in her own head, at most points, you should be you.
Be you, but not better.
Be you, but a little better. And she holds Costas' hand in hers and reassures them by like rubbing their palms amidst the cold. And she says, "Be you, be honest in whatever capacity that looks like. And I will be right here, no matter what happens. And if it turns for the worse or there are heated words exchanged, know that if you need to leave, I am there as well. We can do so."
Thank you, Voska. That means a lot that you're here helping me through this. I never would have even written the apology in the first place if it weren't for you. And you'll like bail us out if she like decides to try to kill me, right?
Yeah, I hope that it doesn't turn that way, but if it does, I will. Yes.
Fingers crossed.
Bail you out.
All right, then.
Which awaits.
Costas takes in a deep breath, closes the gap between themselves and the lizard legs that are kind of like hunched on the ice. And as they approach, you see the ribs and the walls of the house breathing. Like it's like the house is like an actual living thing. Like the walls expand outward, then in, and then outward, and then in as Costas steps forward. They take in a deep breath. Hello, Kral, are you there? Inside the hut? It's me. It's Costas. I want to say something to you. It'll just take 5 minutes of your time, and you can tell me to eat shit if you don't want to talk to me, but... Hello? The house just breathes in Costas's direction, and then it tilts forward. At a 30-degree angle, the front porch slants down and then touches the ice as the front two lizard legs bend as though bowing. And I was not trying to crush Costas.
I thought this house was gonna eat Costas. Just open up its mouth like Howl's Moving Castle style and just go glorp.
Roll initiative in your epilogue, Voska. No,
I was just like, I don't have dice.
The front door, which is this cute little thing of wood with, I think, a little star-shaped viewing window in the center, swings open forward, and rolling out is a rug. Like a tongue of red, almost like the house is like exuding its mouth. Plop, 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 like down the stairs and onto the ice. And then at the threshold of this hut, standing straight up as though she weren't tilted at a 45-degree angle, but like she's almost floating there like it's an optical illusion, both of you see a woman. A half-Leonin woman with a long, thick golden mane that tangles into a beard as well. And her face is soft, It's round and sweet like a summer apple, and her nose is flat and dark and wet like a cat or a lion's nose. But there's something in her eyes that are piercing and hard. And despite the cold, she wears an off-the-shoulder robe that kind of dips and cuts low in her chest, revealing this kind of tuft of well-groomed golden fur rising up from her bosom, and a tail twitches and swishes by her legs, its tufted end eventually wrapping around one of her ankles. She is carrying in one hand a fan made of scales. They look like maybe snake scales, like molted scales, and perched on her other bare shoulder is a bright blue lizard familiar. Kral! Hi! Wow, you look great. Sorry, that's not what sorry. That is what I'm here for. I'm sorry. I'm cautious, but I'm... Let me take that from the start. Hello, Kral. And Costas sticks the letter up and starts reading off of it robotically. I know it's been over a year since the incident, and I'm here to just say, please forgive me. There's, silence. Silence.
Yeah, Voska was hoping that Costas would, find their footing mid-sentence and realize they were speaking robotically. After one of the run-throughs, maybe it started off that way, but she was like, it's gonna happen. They're gonna pull through, and they don't. And Voska just has Parable dangling on her hand, in her hands, dangling downwards, because she thought the house was gonna eat Costas at one point. And there's just the silence and maybe the light, almost imperceptible thrum coming from Parable, and she's holding it. And it's just this uncomfortable silence, and she just pans her gaze over to Kral to see how it's being received.
Kral has crossed her arms over her chest and is leaned up against the slanted doorway, her head cocked to one side like she's watching a tiny little ant struggle desperately against a sugar block but be unable to move it.
Oh no.
And Costas gives a toss over his shoulder like a kid looking at their mom for help on the first day of school. And you see this this desperate look in their eyes help me.
And I think Voska, noticing this, is weighing up a few options in her mind of where this could go, and decides that she's gonna first intervene verbally and say, I believe what Costas was attempting to say is that they are sincerely sorry. Right, Costas? And that you feel... And it's just gesturing to Costas.
I feel like I am I'm sorry.
And she looks over to Kral again to see what's going on over there.
Karal's arms are still crossed, and her eyebrows are raised are you fucking kidding me? She cocks her head to the side and gives Costas a 1-2, with her eyes looking up, down, up, down. And you get the feeling she starts tapping a foot, and the lizard on her shoulder begins to hiss and growl a little.
Voska looks at all of this and immediately goes, holds, reaches a hand towards Costas's forearm and whispers, it's time for you to be honest, all right? But don't worry, I'll help you. And she's going to swirl around, and I think for a moment, it looks like she's about to, strike Kral with Parable. Especially for someone who does not know how Voska casts spells. It looks like an attack as Parable gets launched forward. And Connie, if I may, I think, because Voska, got part of the story between Costas and Coral, but she would like to use her soul magics to kind of like, I'm trying to find the best way to phrase this, almost like tap into the parts of both Costas and Coral's souls that probably still care about one another, and try to like weave a tale from that, almost like trying to hear how their hearts dance with one another.
I love that. As Parable swings through the air in elegant and graceful arcs, scything through the winter atmosphere, I think music begins to sing from these graceful motions swinging around you. And as the notes swirl out of your dance, your movement, your duet with Parable, so too do ghostly, illusory images in the wake of Parable's path. Like, you begin to weave a story about Costas and Coral, the witch and the cursed. And like, we see these lights, like the shimmering visages of an aurora borealis, glisten into existence between the hut and the two of you. We see a younger Costas, translucent, arrogant looking, full of themselves, like completely made of flesh, right? Kind of talking up a Coral on like the edge of some kind of bar, even though the outsides of the room are faded into nothingness. And then like that image swishes away, and then we see Coral and Costas kissing, entwined, the bodies wrapped up in each other, holding each other. That swishes away. We see them lying prone on the ice, stargazing before the cataclysm hits, counting each of the constellations, giggling at each other. We see little speech bubbles float up from their mouths as they seem to ideate about the future, about a family, about what they could be together. And then the glow swishes away, and we see Coral in the distance, her arms crossed, just like they are at the threshold of her house, like tapping a foot. And then that swishes away, and we see Coral crying, like into a pillow, her like lizard worriedly skittering across her shoulders. And those tears of sorrow and grief and betrayal turn to tears of rage and anger, and we see her putting together a curse, gathering components, literally mashing them with a mortar and a pestle, and then sprinkling them over Costas as they sleep. And then the curse transformation. A ghostly story of Costas's eyes flinging open, gasping, veins of ice spreading open from their heart. They let out a soundless cry of pain and rip their shirt open, and we see that frozen patch beginning to enlarge across their chest, reaching up with blue fingers to cover an entire half of their face, and then nothing. And Voska, this entire time, why don't you tell me, what does the melody of their love found and lost sound like?
Okay. In true Bollywood fashion, I think it's like a narrative from start to finish. And as soon as she picks up the melody, Voska, being a woman of perfect pitch, and also master of improv, just immediately begins to jump into improvisational songwriting and singing at the same time as she goes through this. And as she is weaving this tale and singing the song, the love story between the witch and the curse, it starts off as her singing about their natural romance, that it was almost an inevitability of their meeting, and how easy everything was, how beautiful everything was. And then as the conflict begins to happen, Voska will spin around over to Costas, almost like touching that thread that's connected to Costas, and like sing something along the lines of like a foolish mistake, foolish mistake, of someone once proud, as she's like tugging on it and like playfully looks over at Costas, and then will skip over, perhaps a bit too courageously, over to Coral, not knowing who this person is, and begins kind of like singing and narrating the grief, the sadness, the loss, and then the rage and the wrath that comes afterwards. And as that image is happening where she is mashing ingredients into a pestle, there's like colors that bloom across Pascaral's ghostly face, and behind it is actual Caral looking into it, and Voska's leaning over, like gesturing at the results of this curse and how it's manifested, and it's pain and pain and pain. And as it ends on that, the ghostly remnants, she will swing over, and as she is dancing, she's literally just dancing almost in a figure eight between the two of them, like trying to create and carve space for them to link together once again as she's dancing between the two of them. And I like to think that in so doing, they've come like maybe a little closer, not face to face yet, but like a little bit. They've closed the gap a little bit through her shepherding. And as she steps into the middle, she catches Parable off of her wrist, and it dangles, and it's pointing at Costas. And she ends that part of the narrative and says, "But how does the prideful feel?"
I love
What
that.
is the lament of the prideful?
Yeah. I think you continue kind of like a backing track, right? There's like still a little bit of like maybe some syncopation going on, like some backing vocals, like you're singing a parable, and there's still that melody and the chords that are still going. And Costas looks like terrified. Costas looks shitless. But as they're sort of like pushed forward by your dance, and Caral stays, I think, at the threshold, but Costas moves forward because of you. And she's sort of like leaned down, kind of towering over him at this point, because that house is still pretty high up, tilted at that 30-degree angle. And Costas, surprising you, surprising Caral, and most of all surprising himself, begins to sing.
Yes! My boy!
Costas is not a musician. No sense of rhythm in this poor boy, but my God, there's heart. And Costas sings in this kind of warbling, unsure, but like earnest voice. I was a fool and a tool, and I lost you. You were the star in my life. I wanted you to be my wife.
Ah, yes!
But I broke your heart because I was afraid. A flight risk, you could say. So I'm here to make it okay. Caral, I was such a fucking fool. I was a player, and I know I swore to you that I wouldn't be a player with you, but I was anyway, because I was scared. Scared of what we had because it felt so real, and a part of me was scared that if we settled down, I'd lose my freedom. But when I'm with you, I am free. And I shouldn't have hurt you like that. And for that, I'm immensely sorry. I know that must have broken your trust in me. That must have made you feel insecure, bad about yourself. And I'm so sorry if I made you doubt your own self-worth with my actions. But I own up to it. And I recognize I hurt you. And I'm not asking for forgiveness. This just feels important for me to say to you. I apologize. And if you want me in your life again in any way, that's completely your decision. But if you do, I promise you, I'm working on it. I'm going to hold myself accountable. I'm going to do everything I can to make things right. Day after day. Action after action. I think the backing track dies down, right?
It
like
dies down, yeah.
The music dies down.
Throughout the entire time, Costas is singing, like, there's a couple moments where Voska's, like, eyebrow twitches a little bit, and she just kind of, like, with Parable, like, mixes the audio just well, like, it sounds a little better. Like, the wind beneath the wings, almost trying to elevate the honesty and sincerity rather than anything else.
You auto-tune his voice.
Yeah, we auto-tune his. And then she swings Parable around, and it's held less firmly than it was at Costas, but it wraps around her arms like a serpent, and it dangles off of her wrist, pointing towards Karal. As the music begins to die down, as she, almost as a gesture of, what say you?
Karal's eyes flick to you briefly, and then back at Costas. This entire time, she had not reacted, she had not moved. It is like reading a statue. And then she says, finally, for the first time, breaking the silence, "The fool I cursed never would have debased himself with a humiliating performance like that in front of me. Maybe you really have changed, Costas." And Costas standing there, that letter still in their hands, but like torn a little bit from how hard they're gripping it, looking up at Karal with so much hope and desperation and sadness and guilt in their face. And Karal says, "I accept your apology." And Karal lifts a finger with a perfectly painted nail. "I might even be amenable to trying things again, but not now. Not immediately. I do, however, appreciate the gesture. Honestly, the curse I laid on you is already lifted. You have given up your pride, your fear of dedication and intimacy. I can tell from here my magic no longer sits on you. You can let go of it now, if you want to." "So, that moment is now, right? Because you're saying you forgive me, and now I get to decide whether or not this goes away?" "You do. So what'll it be, Costas? Will you melt your heart?" There is a poignant pause as you just see like Costas' shoulders from behind, as you're still kind of standing by his side and behind him, and they kind of square, and they're looking down at that piece of paper, the apology. And then they look back up and they say, "Thank you for hearing me out, Karal. And this," and he touches the icy part of his jaw, "I think I'm going to keep it. Because it's a memento of change. It's a memento of the story between you and me. It's a memento of the threads that bind us. And it's a reminder to myself to always try to be a better person. Also, I look pretty hot with it, right, Voska?"
I'd say so, yes. And she smirks and looks over at Karal and nods. Kind of like finally acknowledging that I kind of just like intervened on a very, very personal thing. So this is me formally introducing myself with a nod.
And for the first time since meeting her, a smile spreads across Karal's mouth, revealing these sharp, filed, lion-like canines. And she actually pushes off the threshold and uncrosses her arms, and the lizard relaxes and skitters to her other shoulder, and she snaps the fan shut. "Well, now that that's out of the way, Costas, Paragon of Nitbusa, if I may interest you in a cup of tea."
Voska looks over to Costas and like holds onto their shoulder and like squeezes it proudly. Says, "I would love a cup of tea. Won't be Costas?"
Yes, we would. And as the two of you start to go up these sloped steps, stepping onto that red tongue of rug and following Corral into her witch's hut, at the very threshold before the two of you go in and the door closes, Costas turns to you and says, genuinely, kind of urgently and sweetly, "Thank you."
Voska I think she hadn't like left Costas' side as they were walking, so she's still like walking side by side, shoulder to shoulder with Costas and like still gripping onto their shoulder, and if they so allow, will like reach their hand towards the back of their head and lean her forehead against theirs and say, "No matter what, I am here for you, Costas. There's no thanks between us."
Okay. And as we close the door on this scene, I think a gust of summer wind breezes past the wood and sweeps this scene away. And we start the next with a montage of you, Voska. You wandering Andake as a bard of connection. A Cupid-like figure of myth who traverses the realm, mending bonds that have been severed, assisting loved ones in finding each other, either again or for the first time. I think we see these snapshots of you across Andake. We see you aboard a salt-moored pirate ship, The Last Kiss, with a Storm Ganassi woman by the steering wheel as the rest of her crew does chores up on the deck, her ruffled hair fanning out behind her as she quietly confides a broken heart in your ear. And next, we see you in the royal beating heart of the court of Toulon, standing amidst sapphire pillars and smiling dignitaries as you officiate the wedding between Savadao and the Empress, newly crowned Toya Hien of Sion. And amongst the audience are all of your friends, the Paragons, the Keepers, the Alliance leaders. We see the now retired Xiongzhen and, of course, Oka, beaming with pride as they watch their younger sister ascend the throne. And next, we see you on the parched banks of Rangapuni Island, consoling a broad-shouldered but very gentle Minotaur person. And I think we watch as you usher Koi through the motions of a bond that wasn't meant to be, and you direct their deep well of affection, their great capacity for love into a new direction. And next, we even find you in a cluttered artificer's workshop as you help Tamba and Xiaohu find a perfect cadence, a most beautiful rhythm of working together, side by side, as the champion's most trusted confidant. Voska, I think you spend months doing this. Weeks, months, a long time. And as you do, as you carry out your oath as a wandering bard, a wandering Cupid, the matchmaker's melody becomes a fable, a story, a myth that traverses all of Andake and brings hope to lovers and friends and family members, beloved ones alike. And Voska, I think those weeks turn to months, turn to years, which turn into decades, which turn into a lifetime. A long, peaceful lifetime of uniting lovers, friends, partners, and all kinds of relationships. And finally, Voska, when you know your storied, joyful life is drawing to a close, you seek out Shepard. The good doctor is gentle with you in the transition. They guide you through your final goodbyes to those who remain. You cry, you mourn, and you thank the Raven Queen and her lover Nitbuza for the beautiful life you spent in service of that remarkable thread which binds us all, love. And after Shepard takes your hands and closes your eyes for the final time, you know that the next thing you'll see is her, waiting for you in your shared after. within the confines of your synchronized souls, you see a room, champions' quarters, a snapshot of infinity. And there she is, standing by the unmade bed, the smell of wood polish sweet in her hair, is Atalanta. Patient, kind, proud, waiting, and just as in love with you as you are with her. What do you do when your eyes open again and you see her?
Voska first, she slithers into the room. It's like she enters from a void of space into the orange glow that is this champion's quarters, and her hand touches the frame of the door and she slips in quietly as she approaches Adeline, almost like nothing has changed. This is how she would enter the room usually. And she kind of slips in and has Atalanta turned to face Voska yet, or not quite?
She was facing away, looking out the window of the after when you came in, but as your presence materializes, she turns and she sees you.
And I think she giggles, like sea foam rising to the surface of the ocean, and holds up a girlish wave. Says, "Sorry to have kept you waiting, champion."
And Atalanta surges forward, laughing. If you're sea foam bubbling to the surface, she is a deep ocean current, frothing up from the very depths of both of your souls. And she just holds you in a tight, warm, loving embrace, and she feels real. At last, no more ghostly arms, no more translucent spirit. She is here, she is flesh, she is real. And the music that rings through the beyond as your souls are reunited is heard in every world, every reality, and it weaves itself into the very fabric of existence. She kisses you.
Voska reciprocates, holding onto Atalanta's sides of Atalanta's face, as if desperately, finally, after so long, like someone who's finally had a sip of water after being parched in the desert.
Atalanta kisses you softly, gently, and when she finally pulls away for the first time, she looks at you, drinks you in, a crooked smile on her perfect mouth, and she says, "Welcome home, my crate, my paragon, my love, my Voska."
It's good to be home, champion. My heart. My tiger. And I think she holds onto Atalanta one more time. She pulls back a little bit. She says, I have written something since we last spoke. About and she coyly and playfully looks over at Atalanta, is our wedding vow? And she raises an eyebrow.
Oh, have you now?
Of course, certainly. And she gestures to, I think, one of the many lush cushions to sit on the ground with that they have for whenever she performs. And I think she sits behind the Gutian, because it's here in this after. It's not vanished and shattered to dust. It exists here. And she plucks at one of the strings, and it's tuned perfectly. The wood has been maintained. Not that the after would deteriorate it at all, but there's there's like a sheen of oil that's on it that informs her how well it's been taken care of this whole time. And she kind of sits down, readies her hands, and looks over at Atalanta and smiles. Begins plucking. You are the beginning. You are the end. You are the triumvirate of time. You are the ocean. You are the shore. And you are my soul's greatest companion. Were you lost as well, drifted to a land far from me, my dear? When I finally found you, my eyes glittered like the lost stars above us. And I think as she says that, she like gestures to the window of the stars and the space, the void, the look of eternity that shores out from that window. Should time permit me a second chance, I would plead your forgiveness. For the moment your eyes would meet mine, all of my mistakes would be undone. And I wrote this song for you, tuned to your favorite scale. I've gathered your piercing gold smiles, strung them together and wove these vows. For all of life, for all of death, I would choose to be by your side. Through eternity, through ever after, I remind you how much I love you. And at the end, at our return, I promise to find you and love you all over again. And even when our time ends and we embrace salvation's embrace, I'd leap into it with you, just like I did all those years ago. And I think as that last line is said, there's almost like a ghostly image of the moment Voska leapt from the stadium banister, ripping her sleeves to form a meteor hammer after Atalanta. And that's the final image that kind of shows as she leaves these vows.
As that final note rings out in your shared after, in your intertwined souls, you see Atalanta's eyes are full of tears. And she's smiling and she's laughing and she's saying, oh, fuck, Voska. My vows aren't nearly as good.
I think Voska like pats her hands down to stop the thrumming of the strings, so she completes her song. And she gets up, hearing that kind of like, you just did that, what am I supposed to do? I was the former champion of the ball, what do you expect me to do? Kind of face that Atalanta would have, and she kind of like walks over to where Atalanta is, kneels right where she is sat, and just leans against her shoulder, hooking her arm underneath her muscular one, and leans in, closes her eyes, and she says, I don't need you to compose me a song, Atalanta. Tell me how you feel. How you really feel.
And she does. And what she says is perfect. And it holds your heart, and you hold hers forever. And that's the end of the epilogue.
Oh, God.
The year is 408 AT, 16 months after the stars come back. Gal Tanger is tall in the sky, a golden plate of warmth shining bounty onto all who wander beneath her sprawl. Under the cerulean horizon and the thick white clouds, we find Rosso. Pillars of rock and glass tower and spiral up into the sky like the fingers of Skad and Nectis scraping the underbelly of the great beyond. The capital of Nabal is ablaze with activity. Merchants driving carts, children running past spraying fountains, dancers and inventors working their craft on street corners. And from above, the neighborhoods below of the championship resemble wedges on a pie, divided into 8 equal segments. We hold on that bird's eye view of Rosso, on the merchants and laughter, the youth and the artists as slowly, colorfully, fading into position over Rosso is the image of an actual pie. An apple pie, actually, cut into 8 slices, the scent of fruit and sugar wafting off the surface of the perfectly baked golden crust. This pie sits on a long outdoor table surrounded by trays of other delicious treats. Rice, noodles, chicken wings, beef tenderloin, vegetables, soup, stews, fruit, cheese, dessert. This table is flanked by other tables just like it, all laden with food, bustling with activity within a garden. And within this garden, Vasanti Noksherzo, I want you to tell me and all of us, what does this garden look like?
Yeah, this is a giant garden. It is surrounded on all sides by large granite blocks of, brick. There is sections of it that are much more like a park where people can stroll, congregate, have fun. And then there are also just large swaths of gardens, not so much looking like your traditional fields, but much more like in the style of like a community gardens, things that are being tended to by any and everyone who wants to participate in this place. There are sections that are dedicated towards those who were paragons and keepers, and you can find almost like in the center a trellis that, if you look closely enough, is almost like a Rodin sculpture where it's like all these little scenes from that year that the paragons and keepers had together, and it tells the story of Vasanti and her friends. And there is also a section in the corner that is, you see a statue of an elven woman that if you were to go up, there's like a little plaque that talks about Paya Noksherzo, and it is dedicated to her memory, this particular section of the garden. It says things like, the only currency we have is love. Take care of one another and no one can fall for long. And around it is, if you were to see early in the mornings, Vasanti goes around to this particular statue and like takes care of it, makes it look nice, picks some fresh flowers and lays it. And then other people have also brought like fresh flowers to this particular bust. This is a way for Vasanti to honor her mother and for others to honor those who have passed, not just from the past, 16 months, what happened, but in all of our lives. This is a place to go and really honor the dead, while also all around being surrounded by life and regrowth and rebirth.
Absolutely. I really love that. I think this community garden is, like you said, a beautiful, lush place with tables of just free food that anyone who wanders in off the streets of Rosso can just come in and take for themselves, and just full of so many community members of this capital, not just those belonging to the championship, but to the global community of Andake herself. We see so many of your friends and compatriots between the trellises, observing the statues, paying respects to the lost during the cataclysm. And I think as we sweep across this garden, we find a half-elf woman with dark brown skin and this short, bluntly cropped brown hair. She's got this marble white vitiligo that branches across a plain but fierce face. And Talat Om is wearing this leather armor, hide, and furs, and is kneeling in the soil, tending to a garden bed. And even perched on the branch of a nearby apple tree, we see her tawny feathered hawk watching. And this hawk snaps his amber gaze to the side as a large woman trundles past underneath it, Rev. She's smiling and laughing, her black feathered cape billowing in the breeze behind her, and sitting on her huge and considerable broad shoulders is Hana, who is affecting a very dignified manner about her, despite the fact that she is a teenager riding horsey. And Hana's long bubblegum pink hair is tied into this tall, no-nonsense ponytail, and she's in the middle of fiercely scribbling notes on a clipboard as she eyes the moving vines of this tall, I think, trellised plant on like a nearby fence post, whose blooms are a little too high for her to observe on her own 2 feet. So she's riding on Rev's shoulders. And we see Rev and Hana moving past Talat's garden bed to find 3 bumbling fools, let's say, wrestling a cabbage maybe the size of a wagon wheel. And we see a wiry green-skinned tiefling with a mop of messy hair. We see a tiny goblin with patchwork clothes and a perpetual scowl on his face, and a hummingbird Aarakocra. With sad, downturned eyes. And the Bonebreaker, Bloodstomper, Marrow Chewers now are struggling to pluck this considerable vegetable out of the ground. And when they finally do, this cabbage dislodges with a pop, and all 3 of them just fall back onto their butts. So as we sweep across the garden and see all these natives of Nabal, friends and companions you've met and encountered in your own travels and adventures, where are you, Vasanti?
I think actually Vasanti is on her horse, Shadow. I think she had come in and immediately probably spotted Jiran and Oka over in the corner and just was catching up, having laughs with them. There's probably Kane is, entertaining some folks, doing some dance moves in one of the park recreational spots. And, they're just enjoying life. We see Vasanti on Shadow. She looks like a great weight has been lifted off her from when we last saw her. She actually looks more like when we first met her so long ago, where she's wearing a gray-on-gray pinstripe vest, dark brown pants, but instead of a white dress shirt with Kelly green tie, she's wearing a red shirt, a very bright red shirt that is reminiscent of when she used to have a mage hand with her bracer on that looked like a red dragon claw. It's that kind of red. Her hair, she's allowed it to get sort of, it's very long and luxurious. No longer is it streaked with the Kelly green and purple so much, but it's still long and flowing, the longest it's probably ever been in her entire life. And she looks happy. She's smiling, she's having jokes. She's no longer wearing like the bracer. There's nothing on her that at all shows the powerful sorcerer that she once was, but no longer can be. But she seems unbelievably happy with it. If you are to look really close, like the only person who probably can still see the traces of scars for when she almost was ripped apart in the Nothing Plane, it is only Rev. Or Lotus, because you have to be literally close enough to basically cuddle to see the remnants of stitches where Scott and Nectus saved Vasanti by pulling her back together, literally. And yeah, this is where she's at, and she looks over the scene of the garden. This is a place that she has built so that she has spent so much of her life taking and taking and taking, that she has built this as a way to give to any and everybody who is in need. She sees over here probably some folks taking boxes of fresh vegetables, and they're going to go back to they're going to go back to Chulong or, some Talamad. There's people from all over all of Endake ready to bring back food to their loved ones. And she's probably going to then see Lotus and Rev, and she's just going to Shadow and start to excuse herself from Oka and Jiran and make her way over towards maybe Lotus, I guess.
Yeah, like the cowgirl that you are, you you nicker at Shadow, and Shadow like moves away from Jiran and Oka and Kane. And Kane, I think, is using a bit of glamour, a bit of magic to entertain some of the children nearby. And there's a lot of attendants who are excited that the champion of Nibal is here too, and all the Paragons and so many of the keepers are here as well. Like there's an air of excitement and happiness and camaraderie that lingers in this garden space, thicker than the pollen and the syrup wafting off of various baked goods. As you guide your obsidian horse through the garden beds, your eyes fall indeed upon Lotus. Lotus, this tiefling woman with deep red skin, a pair of broken ram's horns, and these bright white eyes. A network of scars thickens the skin on her chest and tangles all the way kind of like up her neck and all across her arms. Lotus is currently working a drink station. She is serving cider and fruit juice and water, seltzer, tea, coffee, hot chocolate, whatever you want, any and all manner of libation. She has a towel slung over one shoulder that she's using to like wipe down the counter every now and then as people come and go. And then she kind of pauses mid-swipe as she feels your eyes upon her, and she hears the clicking of hooves against, I think, this padded pavement of soil winding through the garden beds. And Lotus lifts her alabaster gaze up, fixes it upon you, Vasanti. There you are. I was wondering if you'd show up to my little corner of the garden before the opening ceremony.
Of course I would. I would not miss this for the world. And as she's saying this, she's slowly getting herself off the horse, taking the reins and sort of tying them off on a nearby little post, and is quick to try to help out. Like, the table has a current rush, so she is quickly helping to sling the drinks, telling jokes and to friends, recognizing people. It is very clear that in these last 16 months, she has gotten to know this community very well. Obviously, they all know her, so it is easier for them to approach her, but she's done her best to get to know as many people, and she's telling jokes, she's giving them their drinks, she's helping until hopefully this current rush dies down a little bit, so Lotus and Vasanti get a little more time to just actually talk, and as they probably are cleaning up after that last rush of people.
Totally. I think as the final kind of wave of people crushing the drink stand sort of dies down, the two of you get like a moment of privacy behind the counter as you're both just sort of like cleaning the rags, I think in like these buckets of water underneath the table. And I think you're maybe like hunkered down a little, like bending underneath it, like rig up the supplies, when I think her horns brush against your face and she glances up. And the only sound that punctuates this is the distant laughter of children, chattering of your friends, and the slurp, slurp, slurp of Shadow drinking from their bucket that Lotus had set out preemptively for them, along with their bucket of feed. And Lotus looks at you. There's a warm expression that softens her gaze. And she says, "Are you ready? You have a big speech all prepared?"
Don't remind me. I will make it up as I go along. This is when the Vasanti's at their best, no?
Classic Vasanti. Well, I'm sure whatever you have to say, everyone's gonna love it.
That is very kind of you to say. May I give you a kiss?
You don't have to ask. But she reaches forward, tucks her hand at the small of your back, and pulls both of you into like a straightened, like standing position from where you're hunched over, and kisses you.
And I think Vasanti's arms also, after a few moments, like wrap around Lotus and give the type of hug that is like making up for 50 years worth of making Lotus wait for these types of moments together. I think since finally things have settled, if we were to be able to sit in the nights where they have together, there is a regret on Vasanti's part because, it is kind of her fault that she kind of forgot who Lotus was for a very, very, very long time. And she is, not overcompensated, but has tried her best to just give Lotus the type of relationship and life that she deserves to have. And these are like the qualities of her hug. Her hug feels like 50 years worth of hugs in every single solitary hug that she now gives Lotus.
I think Lotus feels that. She senses it as you hug her with this kind of like forgiveness and not desperation exactly, but like just closeness, right? Like you want to imbue all of your emotions into every act of physical touch you get to spend with her. And she hugs you back gently, tenderly. And I think when there's kind of a break in your embrace, she pulls away but doesn't let go of you, looks down at you, Vasanti, and says, I love the way you hug me, but you don't have to hug me like you're afraid of losing me anymore, Vasanti. The war's over. I'm here, you're here, we're together, we're safe.
It was not the war that made me lose you the first time. And so I feel perhaps like there is something that I owe you, I guess. I mean, I've been very transactional most of my life. I feel a great debt that I am still working off with you.
You loving me, Vasanti, is never a debt you have to repay. And yes, there is a lot of lost time for us to make up for, but we have 50 more years at least to do it. 100, 200 if we're lucky. Everything's forgiven here.
I do not know what a Vasanti Nakshirzo has done to deserve such a partner such as yourself. I don't know. I think often about how the fact that I don't know if waited for me is the right word, but that you hadn't given up for as long as you did. That is something I did not think possible a long time ago.
I held on to hope for dozens of years. I was beginning to give up when you walked through my tavern again, a ghost, stepping out of a memory. And now here you are, and every day I get to spend with you. I feel like I'm in a dream. But, Vasanti, what you're saying about not deserving this, perhaps that would be true 50 years ago. But you're a different person now, Vasanti. And I love every part of the person you've become and the person you will turn into 50 years from now, too.
I appreciate that more than I could ever say, Lotus. You are unbelievable. You are so kind and funny and hardworking. I worked very hard to get what I had through less than honorable ways. You have actually done the work. You have been honorable. You have been something that I didn't know was possible. Long before I knew it was possible. I'm just so unbelievably happy. I could not ask for more from you or from anyone. You are all that I love.
You're all that I love too, Vasanti. And I don't know if you remember this. The network of your memories of our time together still feels a little bit like a fun fractal we get to piece together. But there was one segment of, let's say, pillow talk where we made a wager with each other. This must have been 50, 60 years ago. One of us bet that you would never grow up to be anything but a scoundrel, and the other bet against it. And that bet was actually quite steep. I believe it came to the sum of 800 gold pieces. Do you remember who wagered who?
Oh dear, oh gosh, that seems like, I mean, surely I would have wagered against it, that I would have never been more than scoundrel. Why would I have ever been, right? I don't know. You don't. Oh gosh, please be gentle.
She laughs, and she like kind of like peppers your face with kisses as you're blushing and being like kind of nervous here, but she like embarrasses you even further by kissing. And when she pulls back, she says, "You knew yourself too well. You did bet against yourself, Vasanti, and I took you up on it to never bet against you. So I guess if you really wanted to settle any kind of debt between us, you owe me 800."
Oh dear. Well, I did spend a considerable amount to help build these places, these walls. These were not cheap. Statues in honor of friends, not cheap. Okay. And I think like she like searches herself for like a gold pouch. She's like, she opens it up. She's like counting it a little bit. Well, this is not what I fully owe. But this is maybe about a quarter of, if you would accept so humbly, an IOU on the rest at the moment.
She takes the sack of 200 gold pieces and says, "Thank you very much. I do still have to collect my debt. I have a reputation to maintain in Long. And, Vasanti Noksherzo, I have a donation I'd like to make to your community garden." And then she puts the coin back into your hand.
Oh dear. Well, what a kind, generous gift. And
You're very welcome.
and I think they just like laugh together and maybe another big kiss and hug.
Absolutely, yeah. You laugh, you kiss, and I think you spend the rest of her shift, essentially, before the opening ceremony, tending to more guests who are thirsty, giving people directions, answering any questions that new guests might have in this space. So Vasanti, I think as Galtanger continues her slow ascent through the sky, we finally reach the part of the event where it's time for the opening ceremony. It's time for your big speech. It's time for your words, Vasanti. This is the opening of the garden. So where does this happen, and how are you gathering everyone?
Yeah, there is a place. If the entrance is over here, it's on the completely opposite side, kind of against the wall. And it isn't that it is hidden away, but it is honestly, if you consider all things, not the flashiest part of the entire garden. But there is sort of like in many other spots, this beautiful giant tribute to Vasanti and the journey that was happened and Rev. And you can actually kind of, it's a sort of a plot of ground. Maybe I'll tell you more about that plot of land later. But otherwise there are again, like many other places, all these little tiny statues of specifically Vasanti and Rev and their stories, both before knowing each other and after some of Vasanti's hijinks and scores, and you can, if you really follow through all of them, you really get like a full story of her life as well as Rev's life. And that is what the space is. It's a very sort of ceremonial storytelling through this art, through sculptures of their lives up to this point. And Vasanti is sort of standing on a dais. I get to say a dais for once. And she has sort of like gathered people together. Obviously, there are sort of over here, her closest friends, the keepers, the Paragons, everyone who has shown up from the Stranger War is over here. Other dignitaries who have made their way from across Ndake over here. The middle space is for all those in attendance. There's a special place for Lotus, who, all activities have died out, so to honor this moment that's about to happen. So Lotus has a spot sort of behind, and Rev is very close to Vasanti here, and Vasanti is, again, gathering the people and preparing them, giving like just a gentle hand motion for everyone to shh and quiet the conversations around her. Honored guests, friends, leaders of Endake, everybody, welcome to Vasanti's garden. I had this vision during our journey with me and the other Paragons and Keepers that I wanted to be able to give. I wanted to express in my heart what I could not so freely articulate beforehand, that it is important that we use whatever skills we have to help each other. It was through this journey with my friends and allies that I learned very hard lesson. Vasanti Nakshirzo, 2-3 years ago, and much earlier than that, was someone who learned to be alone, to be self-sufficient, to not care about what other people are going through. It was about what I could achieve, what I could gather, what I could get. And I survived doing this. I did all sorts of things. I managed to see all of Endake, meet many people. But this life, it was a lonely life. Because in the end, I was bringing a harvest just to just one Vasanti. There was no sharing at the banquet table. There was no laughter with friends. There was no joy in being able to look to someone in need and say, hey, I've got something for you, and be able to hand them something. I was always looking to take. And so I finally realized I want to give now. For the rest of my days of Endake, I want you all to experience what it is like with a Vasanti giving all that she has to others. I have poured all of my resources into this garden. I have met with so many leaders across all of Endake so that people know that if they are in need, they can come here. And, early on, after the catastrophic events that began this whole journey for us, there were people in need. And it was through people not being able to give all that they could that certain elements, certain groups, we shall say, got their foothold in some places of Endake. I'm not going to name names. We all were there. You all know the stories. And so, what better way to prevent something like that happening again than by providing all that we can to those in need? So here we are. We are here to have fun. We are here to laugh. We are here to be there for each other when maybe laughter is not so easy. When maybe you need good cry. And maybe hopefully our tears will be the thing that waters the soil so that the seeds of our prosperity and our futures may blossom. May our losses be simply the harvest that will allow new things to grow, new gifts to grow that we can share with each other. There is this plaque here beside me, and I think this best encapsulates what I'm trying to do with this garden. And it says, for those of you who cannot read it way and back, I will shout it for you. For those stories who will never be told, we plant a seed. Your journey still nourishes all of us, even those who are unknown, the unknown heroes. Thank you all for being here. Stay as long as you like, make friends, make lovers, and take whatever it is you need. And when you can give back, give back. Thank you all.
There's clapping and cheering. Everyone like gets up from their seats. I think that have been loosely arranged around the back of the garden. And as everyone's clapping and cheering and whooping, right? And like, woo, woo, woo. You know, you hear like a piercing wolf whistle in Oka's corner, right? As you look out over the crowd, you see all these familiar faces, right? You see Oka and Kane and Jiran. You see Manaya and Manaya's grandmother. You see Hana and Rev and Ualani. You see Dusty and Abiku and Lotus. You see everyone you've ever loved and everyone who loves you sitting and standing in that crowd, smiling. And I think as the clapping starts to die down a little, Rev steps forward from the crowd to join you up on this raised dais. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to say that again, Erica. She steps up onto this raised dais with you and holds out a hand to you.
Vasanti takes it.
She squeezes your fingers in her own, and she smiles at you with this bright, brilliant grin that you've never seen her wear until after all of the war was over. I think this isn't the first time now that you've seen her smile like this, but every time she does, it kind of takes your breath a little bit away, because when she smiles like that, she doesn't feel dead. She feels, in every sense of the word, alive when she's with you. And what do, Vasanti, as she steps up and takes your hand?
Vasanti is going to look deep into her eyes. Looking up deep into her eyes. There's a moment of sort of gay panic, and of course, and while again there's sort of chattering and movement around, I think not so much like a hug or kiss, but more like a placing her head on Rev's broad, wonderful, unbelievably comfy shoulder, and just like squeezing the hand in hers while just a little bit of moment. There is a little bit of that feeling of like, that is over now. Thank goodness. Oh boy, that was nerve-wracking. As she sort of like leans into Rev a bit, and then after a moment she looks up again in those eyes and just thank you so much for being here with me right now.
Wouldn't have missed it for the world. You know that. Ready for this? And she reaches into, I think, the belt at her waist and pulls out two pouches. Two familiar pouches that look heavy. And at first you think anyone who looks at it who doesn't know what they are might think they're coin pouches. But you know that the contents that they hold are more valuable than anything gold can buy.
Yes. I think Vasanti sort of knows which pouch is hers visually, so she holds out her hand to take her pouch, so to speak, and she looks down at this sort of ground. There is something about the ground where it looks like two plots right next to each other of what will be, when the time comes, their final resting place. This is where Vasanti and Rev have chosen that they want to have their bodies spend eternity when it is time. And Vasanti opens up her pouch to look at the dirt which Rev gave on their wedding night as gift. They had made an agreement that they would spread this dirt when when they found this place of theirs. And she looks at Rev. Are you sure this is where we want to be?
Sure as death and taxes.
Sure as death and taxes. And I think at first Vasanti has opened up the bag and she sort of just reaches in and pulls a small handful of the dirt, which for her is a mixture of Jukai and Chulongian soil that Rev had gathered for her. And forgetting about the crowd of people around her for a moment, she kneels down towards the ground, and she really takes this moment to really like watch the remainder, like this sand, this soil, come out as she slowly undoes her hand and just watches the dirt fall onto this patch of dirt. And she just sort of studies it, watches it, and like she's really overcome with that feeling of, you know, we return to the dirt from whence we came, and that, you know, that sort of thinking. And once she has watched that dirt settle onto it, she watches Rev in the way that Rev decides to pour her own dirt.
Yeah, Rev also takes out a fistful of her own grave dirt, and when she sprinkles it out, we can see the brackish, fertile soil of the court. Earth that's been consecrated in the lapping waters of the Black Tongue itself. As we see this like dark, like pitch black earth just trickle past her fingers and fall onto the top of where her final resting place will be. And then I think there's a tradition where the next fistful of dirt you sprinkle over each other's graves.
Yes. So, once she has watched Rev drop her dirt, she reaches in, grabs another. And I think almost like, you know, the way that on some weddings they like, you know, cross arms and like drink from cups or whatever. I almost think like they almost like lock arms the way they like reach across each other and pour their dirt on the other's grave. And I think shortly after beginning to let the soil escape her hand, she looks at Rev as the rest releases from her hand and just sort of smiles, a very loving and incredibly peaceful smile at Rev.
And Rev says to you, before she kisses you, and the entire congregation erupts into cheers and applause again. In life, in death, together. And Vasanti, you don't know where your long and storied life will lead you from this point onward. Maybe one day we'll see you growing mountains with your hands, planting the dirt palm by palm into something that distant generations will one day marvel at. Maybe one day we'll see you living a simple life, helping Ualani meal prep for Hana, taking Hana to and from weightlifting classes with Rev. Maybe we'll see you on adventures no one could have ever dreamed of. But right now, Vasanti, you know that wherever life takes you, wherever you go, you'll never be alone again. You'll always have this home to return to. You'll always have your friends to scold you if you eye a coin purse a little too hard. And you'll always have your beloveds by your side. No matter where you go, no matter how long you live, you know you will always be surrounded by love. And that is the unbreakable truth. And I think that's our epilogue. The year is, well, time is a funny thing, isn't it? All you know, Dewey, is that you lived a good life as much as you could. And in the end, you were surrounded by friendship and family and love. And now, we find you in the beyond, in that last resting place all paragons and keepers go to before you're finally ready for her. Before you're ready for Shepherd to usher your souls into the quiet, loving arms of the void, of oblivion and salvation. But only when you're ready. And you, Dewey, you are not quite ready for that. Your bubble in the beyond is bathed in bright, gleaming mist, the color of clouds shot through with sunshine. The smell of fresh air fills this endless space, and Gall Tanger's warmth suffuses every single feather upon your body. Here, you have everything and anything you could ever need and ask for, A seaside cottage with Uhanian waves lapping against a sandy Nabalian shore. A workbench perched upon luscious green grass. A kitchen perennially stocked with fresh ingredients and a pantry full of your favorite food. There's something else here, too. Something that wasn't in your bubble when you arrived, but that you built with your own hands, after feeling like something in your beyond was amiss. The observation deck is made of wood, as far as we can tell, and extends past the gently lapping water like a dock, eager to embrace the hull of a ship. At the end of this observation deck, the water bleeds and enters into this ever-present mist that marks the boundaries of your beyond. Of course, you have your theories that what you see is only what you see, and that the real beyond, if there even is a real beyond, is beyond even your perception as a paragon. But nothing about this feels deceitful. In fact, it all feels so real. So right. So you. Dewey. We find you at the edge of this observation deck, bathed in the glowing fog of the beyond. Why don't you tell us, what do you look like, and how are you trying to peer past this mist?
I think Dewey is wearing a fresh new pair of cargo shorts. In this reality, they don't get dirty, they don't get holes in them like they used to, and for that he's grateful. He's wearing a soft floral shirt, button-up shirt that's made of some light silky material. And he's got big flip-flops on his feet. Very vacation dad.
Oh my god!
You asked for this. And he takes a couple steps out towards the edge of the deck. And he's done this many days in the past. Just sort of spent hours out here trying to see if he can gaze past the fog at the end of his line of sight, waiting for who knows what to come next. It's not an impatient sort of waiting. It's a anticipation, something that he looks forward to.
And Dewey, I think at the end of this dock, you're not alone. Next to you, sitting at the very edge of the deck, is a demon. Not just any demon, a dog-headed demon wearing a floral collared shirt that's kind of unbuttoned. Like the top couple buttons are unbuttoned and the rest of it is like tucked into these like high-waisted trousers that are actually cut off at the knee because the myriad is dangling his paw feet in the calm waters all around you and kind of just lazily splashing his paws around. And the lucent fog that's swirling all around you kind of sizzles upon touching his shoulders and turns kind of black and miasmic and ever-changing where it makes contact with him. And the myriad glances away from the sizzling fog and looks up at you with this kind of like devilish smirk on his lips. Dewey, who are you peeping on this time, you delicious little creep?
Okay, it's not like that, and I've told you that multiple times. Like, don't make it like that, please.
I'm not making it weird. You're making it weird by thinking it's weird. I like creeping.
Yeah, I should have figured. Just my friends, you know them.
Ah, yes, your friends, your loved ones. I don't have anyone like that on the now, so I'm happy to just watch your Dewey TV.
I guess if you really don't have anyone down there, you're welcome to share.
And that devilish smirk slips a little, and he blinks, and a kind of like big-eyed look comes across his dog-like face for half a second, like a very like, aww, like a soft look almost, and then he like masks it very, very quickly with another smirk. All right, fine. Maybe I'll snatch a little bit of love off your plate for myself this time too.
You know, this time around, I don't think I mind too much. There's more than enough to go around.
Oh, You turned me on to these floral shirts. They are quite nice, I have to admit. Very silky smooth against my fur and skin. You might turn me on to this whole love thing, too. I don't know. Love and pain. Same sides on a coin. All that.
You've taught me a lot too. I'm not going to say you turned me on to things because I'm not going to say it.
You've gotten sharper. You've gotten sharper since I started hanging around you. Fine. What are you doing all the way over there? Come over here. And the myriad holds out a pawed hand and gestures for you to sit next to him.
And Dewey, I think, stubbornly sits where he is a couple feet away and then slowly shifts over inch by inch.
Oh my god. That's so cute.
Begrudgingly.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the myriad lets out a bark of laughter. No wonder you didn't get any with Zephyr. You gotta be a lot more confident than that. And he shifts all the way over and bumps your hips together.
Okay, if we're going to be watching this together, no comments on my former love life, okay?
Mm-hmm. Fine. No comments on your former love life. I promise. Though you do notice that when he raises his paws to swear this, he quickly dips one behind his back when he says, I promise, and then lifts it back up. And at this point, the fog in front of the two of you, it swirls, it thins out, and then it finally parts like a curtain to reveal a glowing sliver of the now. And you and the myriad both see, standing at the edge of a dock themselves, the cerulean waters of Three Hoof Lake lapping at a distant shore, are Sitlali and Mercy. Both of them are garbed in these beautiful clothes that flow about their bodies in an unseen wind. Their hands are clasped together, and they're gazing into each other's eyes with a kind of soft and kind reverence. And looming out of the waters before them is Unmei herself, a massive water emissary. And behind this trio, we see the curling eaves of Unmei's temple and an excited-looking shrine maiden being held back by a much less excited-looking older priest. And Dewey, you watch as Unmei officiates a private closed wedding ceremony between the Gold Hearts, and you observe as their bond is made eternal. Ah, isn't that nice? True love and all that.
So I'm glad they found each other.
Yeah. Hey, other people's love life is free game, right?
I have a feeling you're gonna do it anyways. You're gonna comment on it anyways, so.
Damn right. You can't control me. I'm a demon. Besides, the beyond is my stomping grounds originally.
Fine, I'll play by your rules.
Okay, I just have one comment. Really seems like Mercy's growing out her hair for that ponytail to be yanked on. If you know
okay, please. This on the day of their wedding.
Yeah, I think on that, the mist swirls again, the curtain falls and then parts once more to reveal a new scene. And we see Vasanti on her knees, sifting through a plot of damp, dark earth. Vasanti is planting handfuls of seeds into this pliant loam, and we watch as she wipes a strand of sweat from her brow, and we see 2 rings glimmering upon her fingers. And next to her, Rev is digging a brand new plot of land nearby, and in the distance, bustling nearby, we see various citizens of Rosso moving in and out of Vasanti's community garden, taking what they need from the farm stands that are left out, lending a hand when they can. And Rev eventually puts down her shovel, and her, muscles are covered in this light sheet of sweat. And she hands Vasanti a glass of cold water, which she eagerly accepts, and Vasanti just sort of gulps down. And Dewey, You watch as these two lovers talk in these low, kind of giggling tones, sharing like an inside joke with each other, while they're surrounded by this bustling, blooming community garden, molded with love and care by their own hands. You know, as an emissary of Sen, I always did appreciate the stewards of nature, the ones helping make things in our world change, from old to new, from new to old.
Did you did you ever think it was going to be Vasanti to do this sort of thing?
Absolutely the fuck not. No, this is a
Yeah.
huge twist, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
Oh, you should have met her when I did. I don't know. I'm proud of her.
Well, Cardew, who's to say I didn't meet her when you did? Remember our first meeting? Ugh, in the back room of that magic store. I remember. Vasanti set fire to some guy's house.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so you get it.
And I stalked you a little bit when you were on your way to the court.
Don't remind me.
But I am proud of her. Look at the two of them. They belong together, don't you think?
Of course.
And Lotus, too. Do you think Rev is gonna grow out her hair again?
Are you gonna? Is this a purely? You just concerned about her aesthetics, or is this gonna be another
Yeah.
sex joke?
What? No, Cardew. What do you take me for? I've already made like 2 sex jokes already. I'm not gonna make a third. That's gauche.
I'm sure.
All right. Next! The myriad says, sort of waving a paw, and the curtain falls, and then parts again. And upon it parting, we see Gentle strolling through the streets of Dabathati, and they're getting stopped like every 2 feet by a very grateful, starry-eyed citizen of the capital. But every time, Gentle's really nice about it, like really kind, really generous, actually lends an ear, lends a hand whenever they can. But they also always keep a hand open for Wu Ming, whose fingers are intertwined with theirs. And these 2 newly minted partners are kind of walking side by side down this busy Dabathati street. They're buying spicy kebabs from local vendors. They're checking out craft stores. They're investigating the latest tea blends in the capital. And hanging from their hips are a mask, each, carved in a kind of similar fashion to each other. And following a half step behind both of them is Bud, who gets all the pets from everyone all the time. And Dewey, you watch as Gentle and Wu Ming both kind of reach down to pet Bud's head at the same time, and their hands brush once more, and their eyes lock on each other, and in the middle of this busy Dabathati street, they smile, and Wu Ming leans in, and Gentle leans in, and they kiss. Wow. Look at all of your friends getting busy.
Do you have to call it that? Please. It was cute and romantic.
Locking lips. Trading spit.
Ugh.
I still have to get my kicks out of these little pleasures, these little torments, Cardew. You have to abide me.
No escape for me.
No escape from me, indeed. And the myriad actually throws out an arm and like puts it around your shoulders and pulls you close on that.
And I think Dewey sort of tilts his head towards the myriad and like rolls his eyes at the same time.
Yeah, and the myriad sort of like cocks his big dog-like head to one side, and as he does, like the curtain of mist falls again, and when it parts once more, we see your business partner, Jerron, sitting on the roof of the Tower of Risk and Reward. And above Jerron's head, framed by their single still remaining horn, is the night sky. And it's a dazzling canvas of stars and purple nebulae and galaxies. And next to him, we see Kane on one side and Oka on the other. And Jerron's 2 lovers are leaning against either shoulder, and all 3 of them are just talking. They're just talking. Kane is giggling about the latest Rosso drama that they started. Oka is giving them all an update on Shepard. And Jerron is talking about his school, the Academy of Entropomancy. They talk about the students, the best pupils, the ones that are kind of lagging behind, changes they want to make to the syllabus, the upcoming progress meeting that's kind of stressing them out with the Greater Tiolongan Board of Academic Ethics and Standards. And Kane at this point makes a kind of like sly remark about Oka pulling strings as Trueborn, and Oka kind of jabs back and all three of them laugh. And Dewey, you watch as their conversation just sort of winds into the evening, late, until the very last of the stars vanish from the sky and Galtinger's rays begin to illuminate the horizon. You know, I'm with Kane on that. It's only cheating if you get caught. True in academic settings and romantic ones.
No, wait. I take
What?
issue with that.
Really? Do you?
You know I do. You have to know I do.
I'm just kidding, Cardew. You know me.
Mm,
Loyal as a dog.
rule follower.
I didn't say that.
Mhm.
You're the old ball and chain I can't get rid of, huh?
You're the one who bound yourself to me, so...
Shut up. Next. And the Myriad very quickly like flicks a paw and whoosh, the curtain closes on that. And the mist parts once more to reveal Voska. Voska is leaning against an old, wet cypress tree in the depths of the Court of Ravens. The smell of river water, drenched soil, and moss is thick in the air. This cypress tree is the central monument within a swampy cemetery. It's an ancient old court graveyard with tombstones so eroded you can barely make out the names. Voska is not alone. To her left, we see Rev, and to her right, we see In Memoriam of the Lost. And these two old friends, separated by multiple degrees of life, death, rebirth, undeath, are making a tentative reconnection in the wake of the returning stars. And Dewey, you watch as Voska facilitates that reconnection, guiding these unsure old friends from word to word, helping them find the right phrases to say, the right strings to pull on, the right truths and feelings to honor. After all, Voska is Andake's famous Cupid. I'm sensing a common theme here with all of your friends. All this love stuff.
I don't know. Listen, I don't know who curates these tableaus from the Beyond. I'm not in control. I guess this is just what they're doing with their time.
Well, time is such a funny thing here.
That's fair.
But it does make me feel kind of wistful. You know, if you were to gaze into a tableau of my past with all the people I've wronged, hello there, Revenant. Right, she can't hear me. It would be a lot less kissy-kissy, touchy-touch, feely-feel than this, and a lot more stabby-stab.
So I guess this is being curated for me, obviously.
Well, yes, this is your Beyond bubble.
So what are you doing here?
But you know what I'm doing here, Cardew. Don't make me say it.
I have no idea. What's going on?
You know me. I'm so good at inflicting physical pain. And he pulls out a sharp claw,
No, don't.
close to your face. But you're so good at making me feel emotionally fraught. Taunting and teasing me with, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? You know damn well what you do to me when you say that.
And I think Dewey perhaps didn't expect this level of vulnerability, and sort of turns a little bit red and focuses his gaze back on Voska.
And you see Voska has pulled out a flute and is playing a tune as Rev and Maury tentatively reach out a hand and carefully touch fingers together right under Voska's sort of administration. And the Myriad watches this, so do you. There's a moment of silence as the two of you just observe this coming together of old flames, and Myriad sort of looks at you from one side of his gaze. But you know me. I'm a sucker for pain. And the mist thickens and like wipes the scene away. And when the curtain parts once more, we see Oka. Oka is crouched in the middle of a wasteland. Not just any wasteland. Tungle. A vast, gray, empty plain of desiccated grass stretches as far as the eye can see. And an equally empty, vast white sky bleeds eternally from horizon to horizon, a pale ghost of what an atmosphere used to be. But Oka isn't concerned with the long dead sky or the long dead earth. They're concerned with what's growing out of it. A flower. There is a single bright blue flower sprouting from the vacuous soil, poking through the surface like a dream too stubborn to die. And next to Oka, also crouching, is Shepherd, their black hair falling into their face, their blue and brown eyes wide with surprise. And Oka and Shepherd stare at the flower, then look up and stare at each other, their faces breaking open with so many different emotions: surprise, joy, relief, shock, hope. And Dewey, you watch as Oka and Shepherd confide these hopes in each other. You watch as they reach for one another, fingers intertwining, and you watch as, yes, they kiss. Their embrace blessed by the presence of that bright blue bloom growing from the husk of this dead world. Well, will you look at that? The paragon of change, ushering in a brand new change in the nature of that dead world. Who would have thought?
You know, you can call my bluff on this, but I feel like this all, I didn't necessarily like see it all coming, but it feels right, you know? Feels like it was
meant to be.
okay, that's cheesy.
Oka did punch meant to be in the face.
That also what it feels meant to be.
I don't know. I understand where you're coming from, Cardew. Watching this, watching them decide to set out on a brand new journey together, it feels right. You know? Just like us being here feels right, or whatever. Or whatever. Yeah. Emphasis on the whatever.
Sure.
Anyway, enough of the kissy kiss. And the mirror flicks his wrist again and whoosh, closes the curtain on Oka and Shepherd embracing and kissing. And whoosh, the fog parts once more on Quailheart. Quailheart, this hummingbird-like Aarakocra, is picking through the rubble of what used to be the Uhanahi Research Laboratory. And ever since the URL exploded, in no small part due to your actions, of course, Stewie, the strange magical storm that had surrounded Nawa Island this entire time had lifted. And now, the sky is sunny and clear with warm beams of light hitting the white-capped waves just so to make them sparkle. And the salty breeze kind of ruffles Quailheart's long, drooping feathers as he sort of like bustles over to a... You're not sure exactly what the structure is in the middle of the wreckage, and it takes you a minute to realize that it's a temple, ? And we see Lore and Scrummage at like the top of like a garbage pile, right? They're like sifting through it for resources and materials, and they're hastily repairing the walls of this temple, which are made of scavenged plastic, like bits of rubber, some hosing, some piping, and basically just like garbage. But within this temple, there's a shrine made of a piece of paper that has been duct taped to a section of PVC piping. And there's a drawing on that paper, and that drawing is of you. And it's rendered in like a kind of like loving scrawl, as loving as it can be. And at least you think it's you. It's the scroll is in crayon and it's more green than it is blue. But based on the kind of blue smears around Scrum's mouth, you figure someone maybe ate what was left of the blue crayons, so the Bonebreakers had to make do with the colors they had left. Sorry, blood stoppers. Sorry, marrow chewers. There are the marrow chewers now. And Dewey, you watch as Quailheart bustles over, clutching a card between his feathered hands. And he gets Lauren Scrum to sign the inside of the card, and then very lovingly places it at the foot of this makeshift shrine. And we see scrawled on the front of the card the words, "Best friends forever." And there's a drawing of Quailheart, Laura, and Scrum holding hands with you.
I think at this, Dewey is just like laughing in disbelief. This one I did not see coming.
Yeah, this has never shown us, this is the first time these fools do know there's an official shrine, multiple actually, dedicated to you on Rangapuni Island and in Raso, right? Also in Kirtal. Like, they didn't have to make this crappy little temple.
Are you putting down my fans' work?
Are you... There's like a pause as the myriad stares at you. Are you calling this art, Cardu?
Damn. You have to be nice to them. They're my friends.
What? Not you. I don't think you ever called Quailheart and the Marrow Chewers your friends while you were alive. In my defense, you seem rather annoyed by them. But I suppose in death, everyone does seem kind of nice.
It's, being able to watch them like this sort of changes your mind on them.
They are fools, but they're your fools.
They made my beak way too big.
Yeah, the myriad also leans in and squints and says, you're setting me up for another dirty joke.
No! God damn it.
and then the mist thickens. The mist thickens again. And then it parts as the myriad is like cackling and howling with laughter. And we see in the fog a Biku sitting on a wooden bleacher. And next to Abiku is her wife, Shrini. And Shrini is holding Abiku's hand, and both of them are like, they look really nervous and excited, and they're in the middle of cheering and cheering and cheering, and we pan across to see who they're cheering for, and it's Hana. And Hana is standing on a square of laminated flooring, and her hair is pulled up in this like very professional, like no-nonsense ponytail that's making her look very much like her mother. And she's staring down with this really intense and focused look on her face. And she's wearing a singlet with a huge chalk-dusted belt around her waist. And her hands are also stained with chalk, and these veins are like popping out on the backs of her hands. And at her feet is an iron barbell with huge weights stacked onto either end, like so many plates, like an incredible amount of plates. And Hana takes a deep breath in, bends down, grabs the bar with both hands, and lifts it in a single motion. And veins pop out on the sides of her neck, and her face turns red, and her legs shake, and then she locks out at the very top of the motion and holds it for a beat until the judges sitting at the table give a signal, and she lowers it carefully back onto the ground, and where the weights land again, it shakes the ground and the platform like an earthquake. That's how heavy it is. And then 3 green lights blink on a board, and she jumps up into the air, 8 feet into the air, and she's cheering and cheering and punching the air, going, yes, yes, yes. And Abiku and Shrini also jump up into the air. They're clapping and shouting and cheering. And Dewey, you watch as your daughter breaks an Endakan powerlifting world record at the spry young age of 18. And rushing forward from the stands, unable to contain their excitement, is Dusty. And Dusty's hair has grown out a bit, though it's still dark and curly as ever, and they barrel into Hana, and they're hugging her around her waist and jumping up and down with excitement, and Abiku and Shrini also hurry down the bleachers along with Uilani, and you watch as this little family that you had given your blessing to gathers round, hugging and laughing and crying. Wow. I think your daughter could have kicked your ass if you were still around.
Most definitely. I wish I could be there for her to kick my ass, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, for what it's worth, I think your memory is what makes her strong.
I hope so. I hope maybe that serves her better than me actually being there.
Hey. And the myriad leans in and actually like puts a hand on your knee and like looks at you seriously, like away from this veil. Hey. Cardew. What do we say about that kind of negative self-talk? It's only sexy if I do it to you, not if you do it to yourself.
This is not. And he like gives the myriad a little bit of a playful slap.
I'm glad, and as happy as a demon can be that this is the way things shook out, and it was what needed to happen, Cardew. But I'm sure she misses you. All of them miss you. You can feel it, can't you?
I think so.
She's a good kid. He's a good kid too. They're all good kids. I mean, I'm a timeless demon, etc., etc. They're all good kids. They're fine and good with the family they do have in the now. They would have been fine and good with you if you'd survived. Both are true, I think.
I think so.
And hey, what matters isn't what could have been. It's what did. And what we're doing about it now, eh?
And that record. That matters. Oh my gosh, I'm so proud.
Yeah, I mean, 2,000 pounds. You sure it wasn't assisted? You sure that belt isn't some kind of invention? You sure she's not cheating?
I didn't make it. I don't know.
Oh, look, it's changing again. And the myriad leans in and like the mist thickens, and then it parts to reveal Hana operating a buzzsaw. And the myriad kind of leans in over the word, the bzzz, and goes, maybe we're watching her cheat her way into winning that world record, huh? And Hana's wearing a sturdy face shield, these thick leather gloves, and a heavy apron. And she's moving like a length of wood down the blade of the saw, and these like wooden chips and dust is flying through the air. And then the door to her workshop opens, and in comes Tonga. And Hana senses Tonga entering and like stops operating the buzzsaw, and the big whir dies down. And Hana turns around, kind of flicks up her face shield and smiles and waves as Tonga approaches. And Tonga examines Hana's work, sort of like nodding here and there, like looking very impressed at whatever she's creating. And you watch as your old friend claps your daughter on the shoulder and gives her some notes, some places where the work can improve, some places where it's already perfect. And Hana nods very seriously and studiously and is like jotting the notes down on a pad by her workbench. And then someone else comes into the workshop, and both Tonga and Hana turn around and they greet Uolani with these big smiles. And Uolani also has an apron on, though it's of the culinary variety, and she's beckoning her two loved ones in for dinner. And Hana very quickly and excitedly takes off her gloves, her apron, her helmet, really excited to eat, as Tonga approaches Uolani with a grateful smile. And Dewey, you watch as the two women kiss, and they intertwine their hands together, and upon their fingers we see matching glittering rings.
This is not how I expected that to go.
Yeah, I feel like we missed. I think we missed a couple of scenes between the last time we checked in and huh. You know, I bet they both say this is what Dewey would have wanted. You know, for them to be happy. Aren't you happy for them, Dewey?
No, I am. I'm glad it worked out. For their sakes, perhaps it's best they don't mention me in the context of their marriage.
What does that mean, Cardew?
I don't
In
know.
the context of their marriage?
I'm just gonna let them have this.
Well, they both did love you, and I think they both still do. That's definitely at least one thing they have in common.
Hmm.
Speaking of loved you and still loves you, and the myriad sort of nods at the scene as we see like these three women like go to the dinner table where we see they have a special guest that they've invited over, Zephyr. And Zephyr is sitting at the table like nodding and sort of like helping to like set the table, and they all sit down and Zephyr nods, right, like very astutely and very like professionally and kindly, almost a little stiffly, but like Hana sort of claps him on the back and he goes and like they all start eating together. And will you look at that?
Now this is a little bit strange.
I wonder if they have a book club or something.
Oh my gosh. That might be cute.
Maybe that's what it is. Book club for people who once loved Dewey Quirk and still do.
Mhm.
That's everyone we've seen so far.
I'm glad they've all found their people.
Yeah. Hey. Cheer up. And the myriad sort of like moves his like hand from your knee to your back again and like pats you. Not like kind of hard like he does sometimes, but like kind of gently even. They'll be here soon. You know, soon being relative and all that.
Sure. What? I don't even know how long we've been here.
Well, I know we've been here longer than ever.
I'm happy to stay here for a while longer, I guess.
Yeah. However long we both need. Till you're ready. And Dewey, time does pass. Here in the beyond. At least you think it does. Like I said, time is a funny thing when you're dead. But you're pretty sure it passes. And as it does, one by one, just like the myriad reassured you as would happen, your friends come home. You greet them with an easy familiarity, and their faces all light up when they see you, like no time has passed at all since the last time you were together. And Dewey, tell me, how do you usher your friends into the beyond?
I think it's, like you said, like he's been waiting 1,000 years, and at the same time, like no time has passed. It's easy, it's familiar. He brings them into the house, he serves them up a bowl of soup he's cooked every time, and it's like when you visit your parents' house, and they're always just happy to see you, and every time he says, stay as long as you want.
And over time, the deck gets more and more crowded, and the myriad helps you build it out to be bigger, to hold more people, to sustain all the love and friendship that comes to join you as time goes on and on and on. And then, in the middle of all of this, or perhaps before all of this, or after all of this, remember, time is such a funny thing here. The mist parts once again to show you, Dewey, another sliver of the now. Dusty is sitting on the front porch of Shepherd's homestead. He's alone out here, but not lonely. He's gathered his knees close to his chest, and he's leaning against the back of the stairs. He's gazing up at the night sky, the millions and millions of bright, bright stars reflected in his own dark eyes. And Dewey, you watch, and you listen, as your child whispers a prayer up at you. Hey, Dad? I don't know if you can hear me, or see me, or are even aware of me because you're gone now and all that, but I just wanted to say, I'm doing it. I'm living life like you wanted me to. I'm making friends and making mistakes and making art and making all kinds of things. Voska taught me how to write songs. I wrote one, it's not very good, and I'm not a very good singer, but I'm getting there, I think. And I made some progress on my sword training. Oka's been great about that. And Sitlali was also pretty great about that. I've been going to school. 2 schools. Double the school. Abiku and Shrini's school about Titan stuff, and Duran's school about anthropomancy, though I don't really understand half of what they're saying all the time. Gentle taught me how to make food. How to cook. I know how to make pasta and rice now. Also beans. All kinds of beans. Black beans, green beans, pinto beans, red beans, skull beans. You know, skull beans from the court. Yeah, that's a thing. Vasanti taught me about beans too. Mostly how to plant them and grow them and stuff. And Shepherd teaches me all sorts of things. I think they know everything. They're really cool. I miss you. I wish you were here. I still cry about you. But not in a bad way. In a good way, I think. And if you're watching, if you're listening, if you can see this or feel this or sense this or whatever, then I want you to know something, Dad. I want you to know that I'm okay. And thank you. And I love you.
I love you too. Dewey reaches out a hand towards this scene that he can't quite touch.
As you reach out a hand, we push into Dusty's perspective as he's looking up at the night sky, and as soon as you reach out that feathered hand, a shooting star crosses over the night sky, and Dusty sort of blinks up, his eyes full of tears that don't quite fall, and as that shooting star crests across the atmosphere so bright and then disappears against the western horizon, he and when he raises his eyes back up to the stars, we see that those tears have fallen and are dribbling down his cheeks. And we fade to black on that scene of Dusty looking up, tears running down his face, of you on the other side of that veil in the beyond, reaching out to your child. And then we cut back to the porch. Yes, back on Shepherd's porch. There is a noise. A whisking, swirling noise, like a rift tearing open in the fabric of a cosmic ocean. And Dusty, startled, sniffles, wipes his face, and stands up very quickly, eyes going wide as he whirls around and stares at a person stepping through a portal, through a rift. And that person says, "Dusty, we need you." And we're gonna end the epilogues there.
What? What?